All right, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about something that is, frankly, one of the biggest challenges in the cloud: data security. We're going to walk through how to architect a virtual fortress for your data on Azure, building it up layer by layer. So let's get right into it.
And you really have to ask yourself this question. With these enormous amounts of data pouring into platforms like Azure, it's so easy for security to just get pushed to the side, become an afterthought. And that leaves you with a very fragile house of cards. So our goal here is to give you the blueprint for a real fortress, a solid, multi-layered defense strategy.
Any great fortress, where does it start? With a moat, right? Well, for our data platform, that moat is all about securing the network perimeter. Before we even start worrying about who has the keys to the castle, we have to control who can even get close to the walls in the first place.
So how do we dig this digital moat in Azure? Well, our main tool is something called a private endpoint. The best way to think of it is like a secure, private tunnel that goes directly from your network to a specific service, say a storage account. The key thing is, this traffic never, ever touches the public internet.
And this right here, this is what makes it so clear. Look, on the one hand, you've got public access. That's like leaving the main gate to your castle wide open on a super busy public highway. Anyone can just walk up and try the door. But with a private endpoint, it's a completely different story. That's our secure private tunnel. All the traffic stays inside the trusted Azure network backbone. It just drastically, and I mean drastically, reduces your exposure to outside attacks.
Okay, so the moat's dug. We're keeping out all that random internet traffic. Now it's time to talk about the next layer in our defense, the gatekeepers. Now we have to think about managing the identities of the people we actually want to let inside the wall.
And the whole idea here is actually pretty simple, but it is so powerful. Think about it. You would never give every single person in your office a master key that opens every single door, would you? Of course not. The exact same logic has to apply to your data. Access needs to be layered, and it needs to be specific.
And that brings us to these two kinds of keys we have in Azure: RBAC and ACLs. The easiest way to think about it is this. RBAC, that's role-based access control, is like a person's job title. It gives them broad permissions, like reader or contributor. But ACLs, access control lists, they're like a key to one specific room. They control access to individual files and folders. So let's say you've got a data scientist. You could give them a reader role with RBAC. But wait, that might let them read everything. That's where ACLs come in. It's like handing them a key to one specific room, that one project folder they actually need. You have to use them together to get to that true least privilege access model.
All right, network secure. Users are managed. But what about the applications themselves? They need credentials to get to the data too. Things like secrets, passwords, connection strings. And that brings us to the most secure part of our entire fortress, the vault.
And listen, you have to get this next part. It is so important. If an attacker manages to get your application's credentials, all those moats and gatekeepers we just spent all this time setting up, they become basically useless. They don't need to pick locks or break down walls. They can just waltz right in the front door.
So what's the answer? It's simple, really. You should never store these secrets inside your application code or in some config file. Instead, you lock them up in a digital Fort Knox. In Azure, that's what Azure Key Vault is for. It's a service built specifically to manage all your secrets securely, and it gives you a super tight audit trail of who accessed what and exactly when. Okay, let's recap. We've got the moat, the gatekeepers, and the vault for our secrets. We're getting there. Now it's time to talk about the whole reason we built this thing in the first place, the treasure. The data itself. We have to govern the data directly. How can you possibly protect something if you don't even know you have it, right? You can't. That's where a data catalog, like the stuff you find in Azure Purview, is a game changer. It basically scans your entire data landscape and creates a map to the treasure. It helps you find all your data. It automatically classifies the sensitive stuff, like credit card numbers or social security numbers, and it can even track where that data came from.
And having this map lets us solve a problem that, let's be honest, almost everyone faces these days. How in the world do you let your team of analysts run big queries to find business trends, while at the same time making sure they can't see sensitive personal information like customer names and emails?
And check this out. Here's exactly how it works. We can use those classifications from our data catalog to create automated policies. See, at the top, a privileged user, maybe a database admin, they can see everything: raw data, names, emails, the works. But now, look at the bottom. When an analyst runs a query on that exact same table, a policy just automatically kicks in and masks those sensitive columns on the fly. The analyst gets the data they need, region and sales, without ever being exposed to the protected information. That is security and governance working perfectly together.
And there you have it. We've built our fortress, piece by piece, layer by layer. So let's just zoom out for a second and look at the complete blueprint, our actionable checklist.
Number 1. Dig that moat with private endpoints. 2. Hire your gatekeepers by combining those broad job titles with specific room keys. 3. Lock down every application secret in Azure Key Vault. 4. Map the treasure with a data catalog so you actually know what you have. And finally, number 5. Enforce the rules automatically with policies like data masking.
And that's really the big takeaway here. There is no silver bullet. Real effective security, it's not about one magic tool you can buy. It's a strategy. It's about thoughtfully architecting these layers of defense so that each one reinforces all the others.
Look, building this fortress puts you way ahead of the game. But the world of security threats is constantly changing. So the final question I want to leave you with is this. Is your blueprint a living document? Is it ready for the threats that are coming tomorrow, not just the ones we know about today?